Have you ever noticed how some people seem to let others into their lives so easily, while you find yourself keeping almost everyone at arm's length? It's not that you're antisocial or unfriendly. You can be kind, polite, even charming when you need to be. But when it comes to really trusting someone, really letting them in, there's a wall there. And you didn't build that wall overnight. If you trust very few people, there's usually a reason. And more often than not, that reason goes back further than you might think. Today, we're going to explore why some of us grow up with our guard permanently up, and what childhood experiences shape our ability, or inability, to trust others as adults. Because understanding where this came from might be the first step to understanding yourself. The early blueprint. Trust isn't something we're born with or without. It's something we learn. And that learning starts incredibly early, in the first few years of life. Psychologists call this the development of attachment style. When we're children, our brains are essentially asking one fundamental question over and over: can I depend on the people around me? The answers we get shape how we see relationships for the rest of our lives. When a baby cries and someone consistently comes to comfort them, they learn, the world is safe. People are reliable. But when those cries go unanswered, or when the responses are unpredictable, sometimes loving, sometimes harsh, sometimes absent, a different lesson gets learned: I can't count on others. I need to protect myself. This isn't a conscious decision a child makes. It's deeper than that. It becomes wired into how they see the world. And here's the thing, that wiring doesn't just disappear when we become adults. Those early lessons about trust follow us, often without us even realizing it. But what exactly happens in childhood that creates this lasting impact? The broken promises. One of the most common patterns among people who struggle to trust is a childhood filled with broken promises. And we're not talking about grand betrayals necessarily. Sometimes, it's the small, repeated disappointments that do the most damage. Maybe you had a parent who promised they'd be at your school play, but work always came first. Or they said they'd spend the weekend with you, but plans constantly changed at the last minute. Each broken promise might have seemed small on its own. You learn to say, "It's okay," and move on. But underneath, each one left a mark. Children are incredibly perceptive. They notice patterns. And when the pattern is, people don't follow through, they learn to stop expecting anything from anyone. It's a form of self-protection. If you don't trust the promise, you won't be disappointed when it's broken. This creates what psychologists call anticipatory betrayal. As an adult, you might find yourself assuming people will let you down before they even have a chance to prove otherwise. Not because you're pessimistic, but because your experience taught you that protecting yourself is smarter than hoping for the best. But broken promises aren't the only way trust gets damaged early on. The emotional unavailability. Some people grow up in homes where their basic needs are met, they're fed, clothed, housed, but something crucial is missing: emotional presence. Emotional unavailability can be harder to identify than outright neglect because it's subtle. Your parents might have been physically present but mentally somewhere else. Maybe they were dealing with their own struggles, depression, stress, addiction, or just the overwhelming demands of life. Whatever the reason, the result was the same: you learned that your emotions didn't matter much to anyone. When a child shares their excitement and gets a distracted "ahm" in response, or expresses fear and is told to toughen up, they learn to keep things to themselves. They learn that vulnerability isn't safe, that opening up leads to indifference or dismissal. As adults, these people often describe feeling like they're going through life alone, even in a room full of people. They've learned that sharing their inner world is pointless because no one really cares anyway. So they become self-sufficient to an extreme degree, not out of strength, but out of learned necessity. And then there are the experiences that go beyond emotional distance. The betrayals that cut deep. For some, the reason for distrust isn't subtle at all. It's the result of real, tangible betrayal during childhood. Maybe you confided in a parent about something important, and they used that information against you later. Or perhaps you witnessed one parent betray another, and learned that even people who claim to love each other can cause deep harm. Some children experience manipulation, where their trust is deliberately exploited for someone else's benefit. These experiences teach a particularly painful lesson: the people closest to you, the ones who are supposed to protect you, can hurt you the most. And if you can't trust your own family, who can you trust? This creates what psychologists call a trust paradox. As an adult, you might desperately want close relationships, but the moment someone gets too close, alarm bells start ringing. Your childhood experience taught you that intimacy equals vulnerability, and vulnerability equals danger. So you keep people at a distance, not because you want to be alone, but because getting close feels too risky. But the impact of these early lessons goes even deeper than we might realize. The hypervigilance pattern. If you trust very few people, you've probably developed something called hypervigilance. You're constantly scanning for signs of danger, inconsistency, or deception in others. You notice when someone's words don't match their body language. You catch the small changes in tone that others miss. You remember every detail of what people tell you, checking for contradictions. This isn't paranoia, it's a survival skill you developed early. Children who couldn't rely on their caregivers often became experts at reading the room. They learned to predict moods, sense tension, and adjust their behavior accordingly. It was necessary for their emotional, sometimes even physical, safety. But as an adult, this hypervigilance is exhausting. You can't just relax around people. You're always on guard, always analyzing, always looking for the inevitable moment when someone will prove they're not trustworthy. And often, this becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Your guardedness keeps people at bay, which confirms your belief that you can't trust anyone, which makes you even more guarded. It's a cycle that started in childhood and can feel impossible to break. So what does this actually look like in adult relationships? The adult consequences. The lessons we learned about trust in childhood don't stay in the past. They show up in very real ways in our adult lives. You might find yourself in relationships where you keep secrets, not because they're shameful, but because sharing feels dangerous. You might have friends you've known for years who still don't really know you. You present a version of yourself that's pleasant and functional, but your real thoughts, fears, and dreams, those stay locked away. In romantic relationships, this can be especially challenging. Partners might feel like they're always at arm's length, never quite getting through to you. They might say things like, "I feel like I don't really know you," or "Why won't you let me in?" And you want to, part of you genuinely wants to, but something stops you every time. The truth is, trusting someone requires a leap of faith. It requires believing that showing your true self won't result in abandonment, judgment, or betrayal. But if your childhood taught you the opposite, that leap of faith feels less like courage and more like foolishness. So you stay safe. You stay protected. And you stay lonely. But here's something important to understand. The strength in your survival. If this is your story, there's something crucial you need to hear: your inability to trust isn't a weakness. It's evidence of your survival. You learned to protect yourself in an environment where protection was necessary. You developed boundaries when the people around you didn't respect them. You became self-reliant because depending on others wasn't safe. These weren't character flaws developing, these were survival strategies that helped you get through difficult circumstances. The problem is that strategies that work in childhood don't always serve us as adults. The walls that protected you then might be keeping out people who genuinely care about you now. The hypervigilance that kept you safe might be exhausting you unnecessarily. The self-reliance that was necessary might be preventing you from experiencing the support and connection you deserve. Understanding this doesn't magically fix everything. But it does offer something powerful: perspective. You're not broken. You're not defective. You're someone who learned to protect themselves, and now you have the opportunity to slowly, carefully, learn something new. That learning to trust again, or maybe for the first time, is possible. It's difficult, it's scary, and it takes time. But it's possible. So where do we go from here? Moving forward. If you recognize yourself in this video, know that awareness is the first step. You can't change patterns you don't understand. Moving forward doesn't mean forcing yourself to trust everyone. It means learning to differentiate between your childhood environment and your current reality. Not everyone will betray you just because someone did in the past. Not every vulnerability will be used against you. Some people genuinely are trustworthy. The goal isn't to eliminate your protective instincts, they've served you well. The goal is to develop discernment. To learn to recognize when someone has actually earned your trust through consistent, respectful behavior over time. To practice small moments of vulnerability with safe people and see that nothing catastrophic happens. This might mean working with a therapist who understands attachment and childhood trauma. It might mean having honest conversations with people you care about. It definitely means being patient and compassionate with yourself as you navigate this. Your childhood taught you a lesson about trust. But that was one lesson, in one environment, at one time in your life. You have the power to learn new lessons now. You deserve relationships where you feel safe, seen, and valued. And while the path to getting there might be challenging, you've already survived the hardest part. You've made it this far. And that's proof that you're stronger than you think. If this resonated with you, you're not alone. Millions of people carry these early lessons about trust into adulthood. Understanding where they come from is the first step toward writing a different story. If you found this helpful, consider sharing it with someone who might need to hear it. And if you want more content exploring the psychology behind our behaviors and how our past shapes our present, make sure to subscribe. Remember, your past shaped you, but it doesn't have to define your future. You get to decide what comes next. Thanks for watching. Take care of yourself.